Hey everyone, welcome to 3 Beers Deep, my weekly Q&A show where I have some answers to your questions. You can submit your questions at patrickklepek.tumblr.com. I also accept questions through email. You can send me an email, patrick.klepek@kotaku.com. And I've got a selection of these. We're going to do a bit of a shorter episode this week, but let's get right into it. Mostly because I want to stop playing and continue playing Majora's Mask because I made it through the Water Temple, which means I'm now 3/4 through the game, although that's probably not entirely accurate because being 3/4 through means that, yes, there's only one more temple, but if I want to get the final ultimate mask, then I got to do all the side quests, and that's probably another afternoon. So I probably have about, 5 to 10 hours left of the game, but I am sort of nearing that home stretch, and I'd like to get that game sort of behind me. But maybe I don't want to get behind me because then there's no more Majora's Mask to play, and I really like that game. But let's dive into your questions. Anonymous asks, Patrick, would you consider watching an anime series that was based on Lost but still kept all the weird tropes anime is known for? If, like the X-Files, if at any point ABC decides we're going to make more Lost, I will be there on day one to watch more Lost against my better judgment. Just like if there's any more X-Files, I will be there to watch more X-Files against my better judgment. I just love Lost so much, and even though I think where it ended was a fine place for the mythology and the characters and the story and the island and everything to come to a conclusion and to never be addressed ever again, I suspect at some point they will go back to the Lost well. I think there would just be so much excitement around it. And, if someone had some fresh take on what the island is, and maybe it's a reboot, as opposed to continuing where the story left off, although, some of the places that Lost goes in its storytelling and kind of the weirdness that it weaves without getting too much into actually what happens, it would allow you to kind of tell whatever story you wanted. Time is not necessarily the most relevant factor there. There are ways to sort of, kind of like comics, do whatever you want based on the rules that are set out by the show. Although, now that I get more distance from Lost, I wonder if they actually truly would ever do something like that again. I don't know if they would touch that, but, it's certainly there, and the creators have talked about how they fully expect Lost to come back at some point, even if they won't be involved in it. But I guess that doesn't really answer your question necessarily. But would I watch an anime series based on Lost? Sure. I would watch an anime series based on Lost. I would watch anything based on Lost. I'm surprised I never read comics. I thought maybe that might be a way that they would continue the story. Anyway, Anonymous asked, not sure what that guy was talking about, the Five Nights at Freddy's question. He's referring to a question on Tumblr in which someone said, isn't it kind of weird that they're putting out these games? Or rather, there's one guy that is making these games. He's putting them out. Scott Croston? Something like that. Anyway, the question on Tumblr was like, why is he's putting them out so fast and the games never change? And I think, I kind of gave an answer that was along the lines of, well, people seem to really like this series. They don't seem to mind that they're coming out as fast as they are. And actually, there are more subtle differences to the games than you are giving them credit for. And that's actually what this question gets into. The core gameplay mechanics of how you keep safe seem to change a lot between each Freddy game, actually. The games that he's cranking out at like 3 a year change more than most game franchises that have 2 or 3 years between each game. None of them actually seem like games I would enjoy playing, but accusing him of cranking out soulless cash-ins seems pretty disingenuous with how much he changes it every time. So the changes between 1 and 2 aren't that drastic, but the changes between 2 and 3 are incredibly drastic. Obviously it keeps the same basic premise of you're swapping between cameras, and then there are animatronic creatures that are coming through to try and kill you. But in the third one, you have, for example, on the left-hand side of the screen, you have a terminal that has different sort of settings that can go down, and you have to reboot them. So it's like your ventilation system can go down, so I got to reboot that. And while you're rebooting it, you can't access any of the stuff to keep tabs on what's happening around you. So you have, as is the case with the base foundation of Five Nights at Freddy's gameplay, sort of a risk-reward of if you choose to do X, it means you can't do Y. And then it's a matter of finding a balance between all of those so that you somehow survive. It's a game series that I really do enjoy. I have enjoyed playing all of the games. I haven't finished any of them, and I don't know if I will. I actually just enjoy watching the YouTube videos based on sort of like the mythology and finding out more of what's actually going on there, because I find that when I play those games, I butt my head up against what I find enjoyable about it pretty quickly, which is the jump scares. And although I appreciate more of what's going on and the fact that there's so many layered secrets, I sort of leave those for other people to discover. And then I enjoy reaping the rewards of other people's labor and other people's time and other people's investment and other people being careful curators and being careful observers. So I enjoy reveling in everything that has to do with Five Nights at Freddy's, even if I don't myself particularly care for checking out what's kind of happening more than beneath the surface. I wasn't sure if that camera was actually running. There's no red light on the front of it. Anyway. Anonymous asks, what are your thoughts on the fighting game community? I find it very fascinating that even though they're one of the most toxic communities, a big part, there's a fair amount of infighting in these very issues, of it wears that toxicity as a badge of honor, and it attracts one of the most radically diverse and arguably the most welcoming gaming community to LGBTQ players. There's been some pretty obvious incidents that aren't the norm. It's still not as PC, politically correct, as some people would want. Thoughts? Well, as someone that doesn't actually play fighting games, and it's the struggle I've had with covering the fighting game community, and a couple of times that I have, not exclusively, but a couple of times that I have been covering some of the more toxic, gross incidents in which something pretty egregious is said. There was the case of someone being really inappropriate to a female player during a filmed reality show that was being paid for and put on by Capcom, and I felt like covering that was important not because I necessarily wanted to cast the fighting game community as horrible. That's definitely not what I wanted to do. But that a reality show that was being hosted and run by Capcom, like, they should have higher standards for what's happening on something that they're a part of, and it's part of my job to hold them accountable for that. Now, some of the feedback I got from the fighting game community was that, well, when you run stories like that, but don't run stories about all the other great stuff that happens, then people get this idea that the fighting game community is only about X, Y, and Z, and that it's a negative, nasty place, that's not inclusive, that it's not welcoming, that newcomers are not allowed, and that's certainly not the case. I think every community has toxic parts. I think every community has great parts to it. That's kind of the diversity of communities, and it's why after that story, I tried to take that to heart. I tried to go out of my way to look for stories that were more than just the stuff that bubbles up, and it's like, oh yeah, F this, because of course F this. Like, we can all collectively say F that, but if we're only focusing on the negative incidents, I'm also hesitant to say, well, I've got to cover every time that you raise money for charity. Hello to Motorcycle Outside or whatever's happening. There's some construction happening sometimes. In any case, I don't also think that it's my obligation to cover the good stuff. I'm interested in covering interesting stories, and so that's always my responsibility, is to try and follow that and follow my gut, but then also listening to the feedback to make sure I'm not just someone who's chasing ambulances, who just sees like someone screw up, and then I'm there to kind of collect it up and have us all collectively point our fingers at it and laugh or criticize. And so it is fair to say, well, don't just cover the negative stuff, but it doesn't mean you should cover the positive stuff. I think for me as a journalist, it's just a matter of try and go beyond the surface of what's happening in these communities. For example, one of the stories I'm kind of working out now is, so in the Dead or Alive community, there was a tournament put together in which they posted their rules online, and they said, we're going to ban certain costumes because we feel like it's going to possibly make some people feel uncomfortable or it's inappropriate. And Dead or Alive is a series that is known for its titillation. It is known for its very sexy, bouncy women. And, however you feel about that, it is part of the series. And I can see how that would possibly cause some problems with a game that is also thought to be a well-made fighting game, in which maybe you appreciate the fighting parts and want to show that off to more people, but that when they see the bouncing cowgirl costume or the schoolgirl costume and all the panty flashes, that maybe that puts them off to it. So there was already a story on Kotaku that was like, here's what this community is doing, and I thought that was interesting. And now I'm working out trying to talk with those folks because I want to know, how did they come to that conclusion? Like, what is the Dead or Alive community like? Is this unique? Has this happened before? What's the response been like? Will you continue to do it? And so, that's an instance in which a story flares up, and then it's like, well, maybe we can figure out what's happening behind the scenes as well. Like, what is motivating these people beyond just, let's talk about the rules and the fact that a bunch of fans hated it? So, I don't know if that story will actually happen or come together, but that's an example of, at least in the fighting game community, how I try and think that, a little bit further. Garslip asks, hey Patrick, Double Fine is releasing their Kickstarter documentary for free on their YouTube channel. Have you checked it out? I have not. I was not a backer of Broken Age, although I am excited to play part 2 when it comes out later this year. But I do intend to watch the documentary. The idea that I could get access to watching a game be made, obviously it being produced by Double Fine means that on some level it's not completely objective, but I think by all accounts, that documentary has been pretty revelatory for a lot of people in explaining how games are made, why games are made, how the problems happen. And so if I can get access to that, if I can watch that, and I can have that better inform my own reporting and the questions I ask and the topics I cover in the future, that seems like a really good reason to watch that documentary. So I'm probably going to watch that documentary. Ying Yang Stash asks, would you ever take a flatting iron to those curls of yours? Part of me really wants to see you with long, flowing metal band hair. So I haven't done it in a long time, but in high school, hi Pixel, thanks for shaking your shaking the thing around your neck. Pixel, hi, hello. That's my dog. She's wandering around. In high school, it became sort of a competition between some of the girls that we would hang out with in our group to see if they could actually get my hair to go down straight the way that you are imagining. And this one girl, Stacy, was actually able to pull it off. She came over to my house before school. She flattened it, and it looked horrifying in a kind of amazing way because, well, my hair's not that long right now, but in high school, my hair was probably 3 times the length of what you're seeing on camera right now. It was really big because with curly hair, there's only a couple of options. You grow it short, you grow it medium, you grow it long. And you don't get the options that you get if you have more traditional straight hair in which you can kind of style it and do different things with it. Like curly hair, you're kind of, that's just not one of your customization features as a human being. And so I wanted to at least give that a shot, and it was really goofy, really dumb. I think I kept it for 2 days, so I just I took a shower and put a bag over my head so I could try and keep it as straight as possible. But it was really long. I looked kind of girlish or elfish, maybe is the more accurate term. I wouldn't be opposed to doing it again, but I can't say that I've done it anytime soon. I have photos somewhere, and if I can find them, I will post some online. DC Chunks asks, like you, my favorite Zelda game is Majora's Mask. I feel like it gains so much for not being a traditional Zelda story. There's no Triforce, Zelda, Ganon stuff going on, so instead it can focus on more character-driven narrative where normally insignificant NPCs become important and the main antagonist is actually a sympathetic character. That said, I think you should check out Link's Awakening DX on the Game Boy Color. It shares a lot in common with Majora's Mask and still holds up incredibly well. If that's true, that sounds awesome. I have to say that my blind spot with the Zelda series has always been the handheld stuff. I couldn't get into the DS games. Maybe there's something there that I am blind to, but I did not care for Spirit Tracks or whatever the other one was. I thought they had some pretty unique controller mechanics to try and reinterpret Zelda on a format like that, but just wasn't really my thing. I just could not get into it. I only tried Spirit Tracks and didn't try the other one. But the handheld games I don't think I finished any of them. I started playing some of Minish Cap when that became sort of an ambassador game and I needed something else to do on my 3DS. I haven't played Oracle of Season or Oracle of Ages. I think those are the 2 ones that Capcom produced. So yeah, I don't know. I'd like to play the handheld ones sometime, and maybe Link's Awakening is the one that I should actually do. But because I've heard that again is likened by Zelda fans to be one of the more quirky, weird ones that is appealing because it sort of bucks a lot of the series traditions. And I was reading an interview that says it was inspired by Twin Peaks, which is awesome. So yeah, can't say that I'm going to play it anytime soon, but I certainly would like to check it out sometime. Anonymous asks, I watched the Unreal Tournament Alpha Quick Look. I didn't call it. It's called Here's a Video Game, but I take your point is taken. And I have a question. Is it weird that I was surprised that it felt so much like Unreal Tournament? I mean, with so many other arena-based shooters trying to ape that feeling, it was just surprising that a game like that could be made in this day and age. I'm actually really excited to play that game. Just all sorts of crazy going on in the background at all times, and just spawning and suddenly me dying 1 second later. It was pretty awesome. Yeah, I have to admit that I was pretty taken aback by how traditional Unreal Tournament felt. It is now a free game. They're in pre-alpha, but they're making it in front of everyone, and the community is a big part of its development process. So you can download it now, and it feels like Unreal Tournament. And it was really difficult to come to grips with that when I was playing it, and then recorded myself and put it up on my YouTube channel, because it's just you're not used to games playing that fast anymore. Like, games have slowed down so significantly, at least in the shooter category, which I talked about in the video as being a combination of console shooters sort of becoming at the forefront of shooter design. I mean, not to say there aren't other games like Painkiller and things that are happening on the PC, but I think it'd be ridiculous to say that console shooters aren't sort of defining the pace, and by extension, the gamepad and analog sticks are defining how a lot of these games are made. And slower games make more sense with a gamepad and analog sticks as opposed to what you can pull off with a keyboard and a mouse. So it's amazing to play Unreal Tournament. I'd be weird. I wonder if you can play with a gamepad. It'd be strange to play it with one, I think. Not that it wouldn't be possible, but I just think you'd be so outclassed by someone with a mouse. But to your point, yeah, it was extremely odd to play a game that was so fast, but I also appreciate it. It was kind of nice to play something that was just so... It's very 90s, or I guess early aughts. I guess Unreal Tournament started in the the late 90s. The one that I think a lot of... Myself, I consider myself an Unreal Tournament 2004 person. That was the one that I became the most obsessed with. But there were games before that, especially around the time that the Quake 3 arena was around. So yeah, I'm hoping to play some more of it. Apparently there are already fan-made Facing Worlds maps, so I would love to play that in the new Unreal Tournament. Anonymous asks, you're a big Dark Tower fan, right? I tried reading the first book a couple of times and have always really struggled with getting into it. Just wondering if it's reflective of the series as a whole or if it takes a while to get going. I'm a huge King fan, so it's always surprised me that I haven't gotten to that series. Thanks, and keep up the great work. As I check to see what time it is. So I'm wondering if this person has gotten stuck at Wizard and Glass. So there's The Gunslinger is the first book. The Drawing of the Three is the second book. Isn't it? I'm looking over here. And then the third book is The Wastelands. And then the fourth book is Wizard and Glass. And the first three books are all in chronological order. They take place in a linear timeline that where you get to the characters and they go on adventures. Then the fourth book is a prequel that focuses on Roland Deschain, the main character of the Dark Tower series, and kind of tells his origin story, which is alluded to and talked about a little bit in the series, but doesn't get the full attention that it gets in Wizard and Glass. And when I read the Dark Tower series, I got up to Wizard and Glass, said, this is not what I want to read about. I want to know what's going on in the main timeline, because the third book, The Wastelands, ends on just an incredible cliffhanger that I don't want to talk about. But if you read the third book, you know what's happening at the end of the third book, and you want to know what the hell is happening at the beginning of the fourth book, and instead that doesn't happen until the fifth book, although I think maybe the end of the fourth book picks up with what's happening with them at the end of the third one. But in any case, if you are, dear anonymous reader, writer, question asker, if you are in the midst of Wizard and Glass, give it more time, because I gave up on the Dark Tower series for a little while, and then because of Wizard and Glass, because I found it boring and it's not what I wanted to read about. But then once I got a little into it, I fell in love with it. I have all the comics. Marvel Comics teamed up with Stephen King to do a Dark Tower spinoff in which they delve deeper into the Wizard and Glass era of the Dark Tower. And I actually think they've been trying to get this whole movie series off the ground for the Dark Tower. And you could do a whole HBO series based on Wizard and Glass and everything that doesn't take place in the Dark Tower. And I hope they eventually get around to making those so I can hate them. Or they could be good. I don't know. I guess they could be all right. Linkachu95 says, I encountered my first digital jukebox in the wild today, and in your honor, I played the Jaws theme. Sir, I salute you. Anonymous asked, do you think you'll be doing Extra Life again this year? Loved the Iron Galaxy stream, and you were one of the highlights of the first, I think, year Drew and Alexis did theirs. Yeah, I fully intend to do Extra Life again. I hope it's with the Iron Galaxy crew. I don't know if that will actually be the case, but it was ridiculous to try and stay up for 24 hours and play games, and why not do it a second time? So consider this my official acceptance of the challenge for Extra Life a second time around. Anonymous asks, will you still be doing reviews at Kotaku? I will. I don't think I've done a formal review yet. I've done a lot of impressions, but I imagine my first real review will be for Bloodborne, which hopefully shows up at this apartment pretty soon. And that's going to about do it. This is a shorter Q&A this week, mostly because I have some things to do, and I have a Demon Souls marathon to get ready for, which when this goes up on Monday morning will have already happened. So you can check out the Demon Souls archives and all sorts of other stuff on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/PatrickKlepek. If you're listening to the audio version of this on the Inventory Management Podcast, you can subscribe to that on iTunes. And if you go to inventorymanagement.simplecast.fm, you can get an RSS feed that you can plug into your Android phone or your Windows phone or any other podcast app that you might use that is not iTunes related. You can also download the episodes and listen to the episodes there. And if you do listen to it on iTunes, I implore you, I beg you to write a review. It helps other people discover the podcast and what I'm up to in the world. So if you have a couple seconds, that would really help me out. But if you have any questions, you can submit them to patrickklepek@tumblr.com. And I'll see you guys all next week.